seated. If you have your Bibles, turn me to Exodus. We're in Encounter 26. We're in week 14. And this is Exodus 1 through 9. This is actually the second week, so to speak, that we're in Exodus. And so I know we just came out of Genesis and Exodus. So would you just give me a second and let me build a shifting platform to go from Genesis to Exodus, because it sets up so well. Because Genesis ends with Joseph having favor and provision and God's people walking in this favor while in Egypt. And then you turn the page from Genesis to Exodus and everything changes. There's a new Pharaoh. This Pharaoh, Exodus chapter 1 verse 8 says, he doesn't know Joseph. He doesn't know of what God has done. And so Pharaoh enslaves God's people out of fear. Listen to me. Please, everybody look at me. The enemy knows, I think, greater than some of us. The enemy knows that if God's sons and daughters ever walk in the strength and the identity and the purpose of who they are, the power that they walk in is greater than themselves, and that they are dangerous to the enemy. The enemy often knows that more than we do. The enemy has more fear that you might walk in it than some of you are committed to walking in it. And it's in this very place that he enslaves them, and there's this bondage. But you need to know, when the enemy tries to stop and suppress, he does it by bondage and enslaving. So let's jump into Exodus. Let's dig into there and let's see God's plan for God's people. In Genesis, it ended with God's man Joseph in the palace with Pharaoh. But this is not where the plan starts now. It doesn't start back in the palace. It starts in the home. It starts with a father and a mother that sees their child and believes that God has a plan and a purpose for their life. They choose to parent in faith, not in fear. Listen, some of us as parents, we're going to jump into Exodus, but I want you to see something, because in the story we see that Moses' parents did not parent out of fear, but out of faith. And they had every reason. You and I have every reason to parent out of fear. But he's calling us even now to see that God has a plan and a purpose for your child. And when you think you are protecting and that you're sheltering and you're doing this thing of hiding, I want you to know something. If you in such a way hold them so tight that you've not released them to God like Moses' mom did, you are not helping, you're hurting. That you think you know best, God knows best what's happening. But it doesn't look like it, but it happened. One of the greatest places that we could ever be is to let go and let God. Release our children to God and His plan. So many people do it with baby dedications, and they go, I give my child to God. And that was all a logistic ceremony. But they've not. They hold so tight and they parent in fear and not in faith. But this is what happens. Moses' mom lets go and says, that's your son. You have a plan for him. And then all of a sudden, God takes over. Now, I need you to remember that Moses is the type of Christ, right? We've all through Genesis, we've been pulling out that Jesus that was revealed in the New Testament was concealed in the Old Testament, and that in this birth of Moses, we see the type of Christ. We can see Jesus even in that. At Moses' birth, it's pointing to Jesus. Jesus is born under the death threat, the firstborn must die, that the male must die. So did Moses. That in the very truth that a ruler is trying to kill Moses, trying to kill Jesus. And Egypt is the place that they're saved. And it's this truth that we see in Moses' life that is, Jesus is the greater Moses. God was writing the bigger story. But He used Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. We've been going through all of it. He used Moses to point to the greater Jesus that we're going to see. And so before Moses ever speaks, we haven't heard him speak yet, before the burning bush, before the calling, you and I need to understand something, that God is already moving. God's moving in places that no one saw and no one knew. So by the time we are picking up the story of Moses, God has already prepared the plan and the purpose. And it was in the private hiding places where God was forming Moses and planning the destiny. And I want you to hear my heart on this. The Lord has spoke to me about my children and my life, and I want you to hear it about your life. I want you to believe this. Have you ever felt unseen? Have you ever felt like that I'm here and that you're blessing over there and I've been forgotten about? That I'm being skipped over. It's missed. I want you to hear something. God is working in the midst when you might not see it or understand it. That it's in the very place oftentimes that God forms us in the hidden place. If you've ever felt like I don't fit in, I'm not normal, I'm not that thing, it could be that God's taking and hiding. He's protecting. And He's drawing you to this place. He did that with Moses, and He still does it with us. God restarts a book in Exodus, but His pattern and His plan and His progress of what takes place is the same, and this is what it is. Like Joseph, Moses learned to serve in a palace. He just served. But it was in that palace, yeah, he was served, but he understood what it looked like to serve. God wasn't raising a man to be served. He was raising a man to serve and pointing to the type, who is Jesus. Matthew chapter 20, verse 28. Even the Son of Man has not come to be served, but to serve others and to give His life as a ransom. You're going to keep hearing me say this while on Exodus. Jesus is the greater Moses. But in every one of these truths, this process and plan is that as we serve, we will serve our way into the destiny that God has for our life. As we keep serving, Joseph served his way in the prison, in the pit, and finally in the palace, he still served. Serving is the very process and pattern that God has used to keep serving, and as you serve, you'll find yourself having an encounter. It's this place that Moses, he's serving, he sees an injustice, he sees a Hebrew being abused, and just needs to be served. And so Moses chooses to serve, but he serves out of his own strength. It's this very place that if you get in the story, it says that Moses literally looked around and realized no one's looking. I know what I'm about to do. I'm going to move and make this happen myself. I see an injustice. My heart breaks for God's people, and I'll move in my own strength. And it's in this very place you need to understand something. When Moses moved in his own strength to try to accomplish God's plan, something happens in Moses' life that happens in our life. Calling without surrender to God's plan always turns to control. And we'll find ourselves trying to control God's plan in our life. And it makes it a hard task. It's in this very place it makes it a painful truth. I'm going to come back to something a little bit later. We're going to talk about this a little more, but it leads to a long journey. We're going to come back to what is it that you're longing to think that you can control with God? Again, we'll get to this later, but even how we serve Him sometimes. Religion would say, if I do this, this, and this, I'll control God to make Him do that, that, and that. Control is our sin nature that we're still trying to control even God's plan over our life. And He's calling for surrender and obedience. We're going to come back to that later. Let's keep jumping into Moses finds himself not walking in the plan and the purpose that God has for his life. Now he's a murderer, but God does not waste this moment. God uses this painful, broken place of him dropping the ball of what my heart breaks for the injustice, but he moves in his own strength. But God uses the failure to form Moses. In this brokenness, everyone look at me. I don't know where you sit, that maybe you may feel like Moses has this calling, see this brokenness, this injustice. I want to serve God and serve people, but I'm disqualified. You don't understand my life. You don't know the history and the past of my life. Your failure does not cancel your calling, but it will reveal your need for God's way to do it. We see him hiding and running. We see that Moses finds himself at the well, Exodus chapter 2, 16 and 17. This is just a glimpse of how God is beginning to transform and form Moses. He sees another injustice. He sees these daughters, these sisters, that they're getting water from a well, and these shepherds come in, and they run them off and chase them off. And this time, Moses moves in to serving, but he serves a little different. He serves in such a way that the injustice is to push away darkness and to serve what is right. That he serves them at the well. And by the way, I want everybody to look at me. Same story with Joseph, same story with Moses, that you serve your way into your destiny. We know the rest of the story, but Moses doesn't. What is the next step for Moses? What is the plan, the purpose for his life? I don't know, but I'm just going to keep serving. I don't know. Today I'm really thirsty and I see a well, and I'm going to, at this moment where God has put me today, I will serve. I'll serve, not knowing that as I serve, I'm actually serving my wife to be. As I serve, I have no idea that Jethro, this lady, Zipporah, that I end up marrying, her father's going to let me shepherd his flock. Hear me. As you serve, you are serving as unto God. You're serving, believing, knowing that at this place, all I know to do the right thing in this place is to do the right thing in this place, to be obedient in this place. And as we serve our way into our destiny. And what you'll see is there's a part of us that we get to this story and we go, has nothing to do with you, Moses. Everybody look at me. If you want to walk in the calling, selfishness has to die. You have made this thing about you too much. So have I. It's why we gripe, complain, and moan. It's why we are in this place of, oh, woe is me oftentimes, about me. This is, if I'm going to step aside as Pastor Josh and just tell you, Josh, been in ministry for a long time. Serving gets exhausting. It's exhausting to serve. And then when you serve and you serve, you will serve only to find people that abuse the serving. That you find yourself in the serving, and the very ones you're serving are the very ones that are hurting. And you'll find yourself at some point going, I'm done with the serving. Who serves me? It's one of the most selfish, sinful things I've said to myself recently. I'm going to tell you. I've confessed that. I've confessed it to my family. I've confessed it to some pastors. I confessed it to Nate this morning when we were talking. I'm serving and I'm serving and I'm serving. Who serves me? Stop. It's one of the most selfish things you could ever say, making this thing about you. This had nothing to do about Moses, but it had everything to go, this has nothing to do with me, but it has everything to do with this is what honors God. Just keep serving. I don't remember the Nemo thing exactly and everything about it. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. This is the thing that's been on repeat since Joseph. It is a repeat in Moses. Just keep serving, just keep serving. It's in the serving that he finds a wife. He finds a father-in-law that'll love him. He'll find his way into his destiny. Just keep serving. He marries Zipporah. He serves her. He serves Jethro by being the shepherd of the flock. And there's another pattern that you will see. Don't have time to break into all of this, but serving is a pattern that you'll serve your way into your destiny. Just keep serving God. You can't miss it. You want to know that in the New Testament, how do we know that I'm a disciple? And how do I know that I'm doing the right thing? Jesus, the miracle, water into wine, the first one that he ever did. Mary looked at the servants and said, whatever he says, just do it. Whatever he says, as crazy as it sounds, just keep serving. Do what he says. And it's in this place, he's just doing what he says, serving and serving. I'll be a shepherd. I don't want to be a shepherd. I was a prince in Egypt. Now I'm a nasty shepherd with these stinking sheep. Just keep serving. The pattern has been just keep serving, but the pattern has been this is the place that we've seen some shepherds. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph's brothers. We'll later see King David. Before he was a king, he was a shepherd. You'll see all these places of, if you're not seeing the pattern, we've been reading just a couple months now, and we find a shepherd, a shepherd, a shepherd, a shepherd. Why? Because it's pointing to the greater. When Jesus says, I am the shepherd, there's some things I'm wanting to reveal to you. It's this place that I'm going to shape and mold you to hear my voice. Everybody, shepherding is not a job, it's a heart. It's not about a position as a pastor. It's about a position of your heart. And this place, he leaves a palace to serve 40 years tending sheep. 40 years, no entitlement, no spotlight, no stage, no platform, stinking sheep. Just keep serving. Just keep serving. And you'll find that as you serve, the shepherd's staff becomes comfortable in your hand. You'll find that the very staff soon that's in your hand that God was shaping and molding and making sure that it's comfortable in your hand will be the very staff that he uses to develop and to deliver God's people. Serving was the plan. Serve at the well. Serve in Jethro's house. Serve in the wilderness. Just keep serving. And this is the beauty of it. And as Moses kept serving, he encountered God. Exodus chapter 3, the encounter. Moses isn't looking for God. God knows exactly where Moses is. And by the way, I don't know who romanticized the story of Moses. Can we be real for a minute? This guy's not getting hired on staff at this church. He's a murderer, a fugitive. He has had this great public failure. He's in hiding. But I said this a minute ago, and I'm going to say it again. Your failure does not cancel your calling. God keeps showing up anyway. Your failure does not negate your encounter. God shows up. God didn't lose Moses in the wilderness. He led him to a hidden, quiet place to encounter. It's in this very place, as he was serving, it was just a normal day of serving. It was just another normal day. And in the serving, this is what takes place. An encounter. Scripture says that Moses turned aside. And that as he turned aside, God spoke. And I don't want you to miss this. This encounter doesn't happen till he stops and he turns. The burning bush proves God knows exactly where Moses is in his brokenness and in his failure. I know where you are, but are you going to be the one that stops and turns to encounter me? The burning bush is the very place that obedience to serve the greater task and purpose and plan takes place. All of this takes place in the quiet, privately, showing up with the encounter and showing up with the encounter. Moses stopped and turned. I'm going to ask you today, will you stop and turn? Will you stop and will you turn to encounter Christ? This encounter that Moses has, it's moving in, but it's not moving in apart from his failures and fears. I'm asking, will you stop and turn even in your failure? Will you stop and turn into an encounter? Because it's in the encounter, you can still come with fears. Go with me to the encounter. Exodus chapter 3, we see the encounter. The encounter with God, you would think, removes fear, but it doesn't remove fear. It just reveals the great need for Moses' faith to grow. You would think hearing the voice of God, you would think seeing a burning bush, flame, would cause you to go, I have no fears. Look, if the God that can do this, he can do anything. That's not what happens. You would think that Moses would step into this and go, I'll have all faith, send me, let's go. That's not what happens. Let's look at it. When God speaks to Moses from the burning bush, he says, Moses, Moses. This encounter takes place very intimate and personal. It's the very thing that I've asked you, would you today believe that this encounter is something that you can have where he could call your name today, and as he calls your name even now, you'll stop and you'll turn. And this is the first step of the encounter, of the calling. Moses says, here I am. It's an availability. It's Exodus chapter 3, verse 4. Before Moses even knew the assignment, he made himself available. God's calling doesn't begin with your ability, but it starts with your availability. God then says, don't come any closer. Take your sandals off. This is holy ground. This encounter, Moses learned something. God is not casual. God is not common. God is holy. Far too long, we are coming very casually and common into the presence of God. God's holiness is not about a place. It was about His presence. Don't take your shoes off and your sandals off because this sand is holy. No, it's not about a place. It's about a presence that's here now. And it's in this place as you come, don't come common. Moses learns quickly, you want to walk with me? You don't get to come on your terms. I set the terms and the boundaries. Do not step into my presence common, casual. What if God is more concerned with how we approach Him than what work we do for Him? What if God is longing for somebody to just with an availability come to Him in the presence of understanding and recognize His holiness and His greatness and go, here I am. Have no idea what the future holds. I don't know what it looks like, but here I am. This encounter that Moses has, he experienced first from a distance. But look at me. This encounter points to Jesus Christ. Jesus, the flame, the fire, the Spirit of the Lord. He makes a way so that we can encounter Him. I said it already. This invitation to encounter Him that Moses had, we get the greater because we have Jesus. He's calling you to encounter Him and His presence through the Spirit of God every day. This is not a one-time burning bush experience, encounter. This is an everyday that you get a chance to step into His presence because Jesus tore the veil. Moses could go no further, but Jesus said, oh, come on in to the Holy of Holies. Come on in. Don't come common, though. Don't just come for an assignment. Come to see me. Because after we see that He sees His presence, that's when He sees the purpose and the plan. The second part, that as soon as God gives a purpose and a plan, Moses' next words to God from here I am, his next words were, who am I, right? Think about it. Here's the plan, Moses. This is what I want for your life. Immediately, have you not moved into what God calls you to? And insecurity is the first thing that happens. Exodus chapter 3, verse 11. Who am I? Availability is easy until God asks you to do something bigger than you. God doesn't answer His question when He says, who am I? He goes, no, you need to know who am I. It's not about who you are and I make you greater. It's about you knowing me greater. It's about you knowing who am I. Go back to this whole selfish mentality. Who am I? What about my weakness? And what about me? Stop making it about you and make it about the God who's called you. That when He moves into this, who am I? God doesn't even speak to that. Who are you? No, who am I? He's building the I am inside of him, which moves Moses to the next response. Okay, then who are you? I want to encounter you. Who are you? Because he had a limited revelation. It's Exodus chapter 3:13. He goes, what's your name? And he says, I am who I am. And by the way, God is okay with this question. I wasn't okay with this question for a while. I've thought about how Moses' response to him, they're terrible responses in my opinion. That the God of the universe is speaking to you, go, who you? Who's you? What are you doing? As wrong as the question is, listen to me, he's still asking questions. God's okay with you asking questions. I don't care how wrong they are. Ask him the question. He asked the question, and God goes, I love to reveal who I am. Keep asking questions like that. Is this place that he moves into knowing who God is? But even knowing God, having the faith to have heard his voice, do we still not have fear? Has anybody ever had an encounter with God, but you still have fear in some areas? Moses asked, what if they don't believe me? You can hear the fear in his next response. What if they don't believe me? What if, Exodus chapter 4, verse 1, fear immediately. When you and I encounter God, we also encounter fear. Why? Because we know me. I know me. Exodus chapter 4, verse 2. God says, what's in your hand? I'm already doing the work. That staff, I put it there. Take that hand, put it inside your cloak. Leprosy, put it back. It's gone. Don't worry about what I'll do with your hand. Just give me your hand. Just give me your hand. Even still, Moses said, I can't. I'm inadequate. My speech, I can't. Moses again focuses on the weakness. And God moves into, don't worry about what your mouth can't do. Worry about the God who made your mouth. I'm the God who created. I am the God that made your mouth. Your weakness has not surprised me. I knew your weakness when I called you. Moses moves now from this insecurity, this lack of really knowing him, this fear of failure. Then he moves to insecurity, to resistance. Faith doesn't grow when you and I make excuses. Faith grows in obedience. I'm going to say that again. Faith doesn't grow in excuses. Faith grows in obedience. Has anyone had an encounter with God, but you've moved from encounter to excuses? I'm going to ask it again. Please look at me. Has anyone had an encounter with God, and you've moved from encounter to excuse? There has to be a place that you believe that God is greater than you. Yeah, but you don't know how great my sin is. Who do you think you are that your sin is greater than God's grace? Move into this place of encounter and allow every encounter to start speaking to every excuse. Moses had an encounter, and God spoke to every fear. Who am I? What if I can't? Send someone else. It's this last place of resistance that Moses says, just send somebody else. Resistance. God was okay with the questions of what about me? What about my brokenness? What about me? God is okay with your fear and your failure, but not your resistance. The Bible said, and God then got angry. The Bible says he got angry. And what does that mean that God got angry? I want you to know something. This is not a random anger. This is God confronting resistance. God was patient with Moses' question, but he was not patient with his refusal to obey. I'm going to say that again. He is patient with our brokenness and our failures, but he struggles with this disobedience and refusal to walk in this. Because there's a difference between faith and disobedience. But even that, in Moses' disobedience to want to walk in this, God provides grace. He gives Aaron. I don't have time to talk about this. This is a whole message in itself. Don't forget, the thing that you wanted to use as a crutch, by the way, the thing that you think is going to help God's plan, that thing, you think, I'm going to control. I will do what you want, but I'll do it my way with this person and that. I'll do it like this and I'll do it like this, rather than just walking in the plan. God will go, oh, okay. But your way is going to often bring more heartache. Aaron's the one that helped build the calf. Aaron was the one that hindered a lot of the process. Oh, okay, I'll give you grace, and you think you need that. You'll see. What if we had enough faith to just walk in the thing that God called us to walk in? God doesn't need mine and your backup plan. God is calling us to walk in the plan of God for our lives. Just come take a step and encounter me. And when you encounter God, it exposes your faith, your lack of faith. Luke can come around. I'm going to close. This response, because there's so many ways. I said this to Luke right before church started. I said it to Brooke. I said it to 3 or 4 people this morning. I've cut all that I could cut in Exodus. We're in chapter 4. I know that. But I could not get past this. Because the next steps that take place, we're going to get there. We're going to see it. But they never take place without a surrender to obedience in the encounter. We can't go any further of what God's going to do in deliverance and what God's going to do in setting the captive free until we understand that this encountering moment that God is calling us to is a deciding moment of will you obey or not? And you choosing to obey at this encounter and walk in obedience, this is what determines your destiny. Some of us, we're not needing more clarity. This isn't a clarity issue. It's an obedience issue. For many of us, we're not waiting on God to speak. God is waiting on us. Stop, turn, and encounter. We all need to remember, every excuse we make is one more step of distance between obedience that God is calling us to. This encounter, the burning bush experience, isn't it amazing? Don't we all want to have the burning bush experience where God calls our name and speaks to us? Jesus came. Jesus is the greater Moses. And Jesus created the greater encounter. He called us to encounter His presence every day, to be able to hear our name called every day. Exodus that we're going to move into of the story, it starts with brokenness. It starts with lack of faith. It starts with lack of obedience. It starts with, sounds like my story and your story, doesn't it? So the thing that we should take away right off the rip of this story, your lack of faith is not going to stop God's plan. Your brokenness will not stop His plan. You are not too late, and your murdering, sinful ways have not disqualified you to encounter Him and to encounter the plan and purpose that God has for your life. The same God who called Moses in the wilderness by name, I've asked this morning, will you still call us by name? I'm going to ask that there be a moment this morning. I'm not going to try to recreate a burning bush experience. The greater that Jesus has done in tearing the veil of Holy of Holies and you stepping in, Jesus has done the work. It is finished. That now you this morning can do this truth. I long to walk in the plan and the purpose that God has for my life. I'm going to ask the question, how many in this room you believe and know there's more to my life than this? I've not yet met the full potential of walking in the calling and the plan, the purpose that God has for my life. I'm asking that you would turn your ear to hear the Spirit of God going, there's more, Moses. There's more. That He would call your name. But in this, I'm going to ask, you may have heard your name, but this time, don't let fear determine your fate. Don't let fear keep you from what God's calling you to. Don't go back to comfortable. I can't believe you're calling me going to do a hard thing. I can't believe you're going to call me out of this comfort zone of I figured this shepherding thing out. I've got this. Come on. I'm going to move you out of this comfort into something. Doesn't seem very comfortable. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. But listen to me. You will encounter me in ways that you'll never encounter me in the comfort. Don't go back to halfway obedience. My prayer today is that you encounter Jesus, starting with hearing your name and responding with, here I am. That's all Moses did. I don't even know what the future holds. I have no idea what it's going to look like, but this much I know, here I am. You've kept me from my mother's womb. You allowed me to be preserved when the enemy should have taken me out a long time ago, when I should have taken me out. You've kept me, and you've kept me for a plan and a purpose. Here I am, God. I know there's more than this. You've been faithful in the wilderness. You were faithful when I was on the run. You were faithful in my sin and my murder. You've been faithful, and you've been faithful to this place where you've called my name again. Here I am. This is all I'm going to ask you to do this morning. Give Him your availability in the encounter. Chapters 5 through 9. Listen to me. Step into it. The very things that happens in chapters 5 through 9 is this. God uses plagues to have another encounter. not just for his people, but Pharaoh and all the Egyptians to see and know that he is God. Every plague was targeting a false god. The Nile turns to blood. Their source of life is touched. Frogs multiplied. They worship frogs. It was overwhelming. Darkness covers the land. Even their sun god is silenced. Everybody, please look. This encounter, chapters 5 through 9 of the plagues, this encounter was, I will reveal I am who I said I am. This encounter is you encounter truth that you've tried to control with other gods. You've tried to control your life in such a way. I will show you I am the God that's in control. God was revealing himself. Every plague was saying, I'm the one. I am in control. Will you let go? The let my people go, all that was surrender. Oh, you don't want to surrender? I love my people enough that I will clench it even more. I'll let pain be the motivator that you will see that I am God. The Bible says that every day, one day, this is what's going to happen. Every knee will bow and every tongue will go, He is God. With or without your surrender. With or without our obedience. God was declaring, chapters 5 through 9, I'm over the river, I'm over the land, I'm over the sky, I'm over the life. I'm over your life. This is what I want to ask you to do. I want you to just stand. And I'm going to ask you, would you encounter God this morning in such a way? This year, as we were planning our discipleship series, the Holy Spirit spoke to my heart in October and November, and He said, if they'll stop and turn, they will encounter me in a way they've never seen me. I will reveal myself to them in an encounter this year in ways that they've never thought they would encounter me. This encounter requires stopping, turning, and saying, here I am. I long to walk in obedience to whatever it is you have for my life. As a husband, as a wife, as a mother, as a father, as a minister, here I am. This is not for who's this for. This is for all of us, that God is longing for us to encounter Him. God is still calling His people, calling for you to not come casual this morning. Don't come common. Come into the holiness of God, in the presence of God, going, here I am, God. I've been trying to control my life. I've been trying to control my marriage and control. I've been so selfish to make this about me. I surrender. Here I am. Come into the presence of God, not coming, not casual, but with I'm here and I'm here to obey. These altars are open this morning. Father, would you allow us this morning to move into your presence to encounter you? Either right where they sit, where they stand, or right here in these altars. I pray that someone would move. It started with moving. From the burning bush experience, what took place was that Moses stopped and moved. He moved to the encounter. He moved to the very place of turning from casual and common, and he moved. May these altars be a place, God, that someone encounters you this morning, but more than that, you hear their cry. Church, don't leave here today without the availability of here I am given to God in a sacred, holy moment. Here I am, God, come on. It's not about a song in closing. It's about you pressing in. It's about you surrendering your life to God, surrendering your heart to Him. Here I am, God. Here I am, God.